we go live. Uh, need to go live on Abstract as well. Viewer stream. Start live streaming. Interview with MapleStory Universe. Let's go. Let's get it. Yo, where's Heimer? Heimer's just disappeared. That's crazy. Common stuff. But here we go. Today we are interviewing MapleStory Universe. Yay! Kate, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, guys? So it's like I think it's my first time turning the cam on while doing something live on the web. Very excited. Thanks for having me, guys.
I actually want to jump in because I found this quite funny. Jave pronounced it as MapleStory or something. It's Maple, Jave. It's MapleStory. Oh my god.
My bad. Don't forget to join the arena, by the way. Cave the Red Song, if you can join it right now.
Yeah, send me the link. I'll hop in.
Let me send real quick. Oh, here we go. I'll send in the StreamYard chat comments. Post a comment. Okay. Hammers is joining us right now as well. Everyone is here. We are live. Let's go. Okay, Kate, let me invite you real quick.
I think I'm already in there.
Yeah. I need to invite you to speak on the and Red Song cool. Invite to speak as well. Okay, here we go. I'll mute this site right away because I hear you on the StreamYard anyway. Don't forget to turn on your mic on Arena as well.
Right. 1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm going to mute my arena while my microphone could be on. Cool. I think we're good to go.
Good to go. Let's go. Let's start with the first question. Where's Heimer's device is not connected? Okay, I will start right anyway, but feel free to join us as well. So, just starting with the introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself, about MapleStory for those who doesn't know, and what do you exactly at the company as well?
Right. So, I'm Keith. I'm from Korea. And I'm the head of strategy at MapleStory Universe, and I joined the project on November of 2021. So it's like, I don't know, 3 years and a half already. So it's been a while. When I joined the project, it was just maybe 25, maybe 30 people, like a little less than 30 people back then. Now the team has grown to I think about 120 plus people in the team right now. So when I first joined, I didn't really have a specific role at MapleStory Universe. I think the first things I worked on was like still the tokenomics. Like no one knew what to do with the tokenomics. Like I like too, but since there is no one doing it, then I was on maybe like experimenting different things, trying to learn what is the best practice of the industry at the time, right? So like back then I was referencing all the, early Web3 games. We're still early, but earlier Web3 games, starting with, Axie Infinity. Back then we also had Wimix and all these very, very early stuffs. And I eventually became, I think, what was my title back then? I think like chief blockchain designer or something like that. I didn't really like the title, but now I'm head of strategy. In charge of making strategic decisions, where to go forward. Also about the tokenomics, listing. So like a lot of major strategy stuff that needs to be done in MapleStory Universe. So that's about me. I have been also lifelong MapleStory fan. Grew up playing a lot of Nexon games. That's pretty much about me and MapleStory. So it's an IP loved by 250 million users globally. It's been around for 22 years. So I started playing this game when I was 8 years old. So 8, 9 years old, I remember. So it's like part of my life. So I think a lot of users, like over 50 million users, have been constantly playing MapleStory for over 10 years. 50 million users. That's like a lot of users, right? And I think MapleStory is pretty huge, especially in Korea, but also in globally. It's like lifetime revenue is over $5 billion. It is a super, super complicated, strong in-game economy. So pretty cool stuff about MapleStory. And MapleStory, we are building MapleStory Universe, which is like a blockchain platform of MapleStory, and also NextSpace ecosystem, which will be like an IP fire chain. So like we are building a shared system where different IPs can come in. They can decentralize their IP, decentralize all the most important ecosystem aspects, allowing users and contributors to come into the ecosystem and build the IP together, not just a single silo of the game. So we are doing a lot of things in here. So we are creating like the next level reward experience with tokenized assets, with the fixed number of items. Unlike in Web 2, we have like infinite number of items where basically game devs can create infinitely, and making sure everything is owned and owned by the users, owned by whoever deserves it. And from that onwards, we are allowing users to really capitalizing, be able to capitalize their assets, like just beyond their utilities inside their game. So we're doing a lot of experimentations, making sure it's going to be more fun compared to the conventional MapleStory that we had. We all love the conventional MapleStory, but it's going to be more fun.
So I actually want to jump in and make a bit of a funny remark. I've never played MapleStory. So back when MapleStory was actually like the flavor that everyone was playing. I have a bit of a weird personality. If something is hype, if everyone is playing it, I will actively avoid it. So back in my era, when as mentioned, MapleStory was the flavor. Everyone was either playing MapleStory or they were playing RuneScape. I was playing neither of them, but I was still playing Asian games. I was playing Mu Online and Cabal Online. Not super sure if you know these two, probably do, but yeah, I was all over these. Like I was eating Cabal and Mu. And funnily enough, I always get reactions when I say this, because people are familiar with these, but there's very few people who actually play them. So running into into different people who play these titles is very funny. Metin 2 was also very popular back in that era, around Europe essentially. Like everyone was playing a lot of Metin 2. So yeah, although I did play something close to MapleStory. Not sure if you've ever heard of this one. It was Elsword Online. So it was quite similar to MapleStory. I played it like a lot
Do you
later.
know Elsword is being published by Nexon?
Oh my! I did not know that. I actually did not know that. Oh my god!
How did I not know that?
I never cared. Yeah, I never actually cared to look into that. But okay, there we go. I actually played. Speaking of Nexon, I also played a lot of Vindictus, Mabinogi Heroes. So that one is another one I played a ton. That's when I learned what Nexon is. By the way, that's the first time I actually learned what Nexon was, when I started playing a ton of Vindictus, and I'm very hyped about Vindictus 2 right now as well.
Awesome, cool stuff.
Thank you to the comments out there. Kate is the best. That's right. Hello, Dozy. Hello, Maple Hell. Hello, hi. Thank you for the tip, Dummy Dom, 400 Pengu and 300 Pengu. Can you ask Kate who is his favorite colleague?
Oh, I think I can safely say it's Dominic. Safe to say it's Dominic. 100%.
Okay, Dreadson. What's for the second question to you? What do you want to ask Kate about?
Well, I mean, one of the questions I would essentially have is, how did you actually get into the industry? Like, what attracted you to get into Web3 as a whole? And this is not about MapleStory. This is about you as an individual.
Right. So I actually went to business school and I majored in marketing. So quite weird stuff, right? I was a crypto investor, like, just casual CEX kind of investor since like 2017, but, never really thought about, getting into the industry as a profession. Um, so during the COVID time, I was working in Singapore, one of my first companies. And then, because of all the lockdowns and everything, I kind of felt homesick and I wanted to go back to Korea. I went back to Korea. I actually wanted to take like a few months off, right? After a few years of working without vacations, I kind of felt like I deserve some good rest. But I opened one of the like LinkedIn kind of site in Korea that I just saw Nexon like popping up. They're hiring people, and that was for the intelligence labs where um, they're looking for PMs to build like AI stuffs, machine learning stuff. So like since I have been like a lifelong fan of Nexon IPs, lifelong players of MapleStory, I don't know, I was just drawn to it. I just applied for it. So I went to intelligence labs in Nexon as a PM, right? And after like 6 months, um, I've been working with, back then, I was working with Daehyun, the current CEO of Nexon Korea, and he knew that I was a big, big, big fan of MapleStory. But back then I didn't really had any opportunity to work with the MapleStory IP. But he just told me like, hey, we're starting something new. We're experimenting something very big, something very, very new. And, I thought you might be interested in it. And I was like, hell yeah, like, let's do it. And, we, that's how like I basically ended up joining MapleStory Universe project without really knowing I was joining Web3. Like it was such a coincidence in a way. I didn't really like had that ethos of blockchain and decentralization in place. Like I wasn't drawn by all that. Actually, I was drawn to the industry by the love of MapleStory IP. And then I was excited to picking up, I started to pick up, all these, why are these people crazy about blockchain? Like, what is blockchain? Like, why should we use blockchain? All these questions then pop up like after getting into the industry. But back then at like 2021, everything was still we were still early, but back then it was even earlier. So yeah, that's, I don't know how I joined the industry. I still cannot believe it's happening.
Well, I mean that's a funny story. This the 2017 gang. It's always a 2017 gang.
Yep.
A real gamer join it. I mean,
Yep. I joined the project as a gamer.
Same here, by the way. I've actually joined this space in I would say it was like December 2021, February 2022, and I've joined right away as a gamer. So I found back then it was a gaming startup called SkateX by Blocktaco, but it was acquired later on. And basically, I was just really curious about the Web3 gaming tech. Looking for other Web3 gaming projects. Then I've joined like a partnerships manager and just helping out the companies. And eventually I became a BD. Before Web3 gaming, I was just a developer basically. But I got bored with coding, and that's why I transitioned to another profession. But basically, I was a game developer, then front-end developer, and then became a business developer. That's pretty much my story.
You're developing everything. Awesome.
That's true. And timers, what's your question? And by the way, when you speak, don't forget to turn on your mic, both on StreamYard and the arena as well. You're not speaking right now. You're muted on StreamYard.
a lot of mics, bro. That's a lot of mics. I mean, so
what kind of emotion was that?
Bro, it was a testing mic and OBS joke. So, Kate, I just really want to ask you, like, what do you consider like makes MapleStory Universe and MapleStory like unique game and unique product and current stage of market, right? You built foundation before as a game, right? But right now we are playing blockchain thing. And the question is, what is your position here, and like how you'll face like your competitors, and who is your main competitor right now? Like it's not really comparable at this moment. Like right now we have like up to 300 games at 60-80% live way, and your game is really ready for. But I mean, like, what is your vision for these questions? How is your UC unique, and who's your competitors? How you will face them? Something like this.
Right. I think so far we haven't really seen a super successful Web3 games. I mean, games, entertainment, something that entertainment is something that people pays for their in exchange for their entertainment value, right? And we haven't really seen those things in Web3 space, at least. So we are an entertainment company. We're creating a deeply immersive virtual world. We're creating that experience, human to human experience, that adventures within that deeply immersive virtual worlds. That's what we're creating. So if in that sense, I think that doesn't change regardless we're in Web 2 or in Web 3. I mean, that's not supposed to change. In that sense, I think our biggest competitors is other companies who are creating deeply immersive gaming experience, gaming virtual worlds. And maybe one of my favorite, World of Warcraft, if they venture into Web3, they start freeing all that in-game items like outside, like, and allow users to capitalize on them, allow like different audiences to come into play and build the World of Warcraft together in an exponential speed. That's gonna be a huge threat to our business, to be honest. But I mean, if you're talking about like all the incumbent players in Web3, I think we might have a slightly different destination or objective in a way. Not to shit on them, but I mean, we are here to build a product that will last next 5 decades, literally, and that's the only reason we're building it on blockchain. We want something to be something to last, something to stay, something to be owned, and that's why that being the reason where builders and community will participate and start building with us. So I think we have a slightly different objectives. We don't really, I think a lot of people are asking me like, when are we launching? When? Come on, just launch the game already, kind of things. But I hear them. I hear why they might be asking us to launch everything in a hurry. Of course, there are a lot of fans, a lot of communities are waiting to play our game, and I'm very grateful for that. But I've been building this project for 42 months without launching it, and 1 month is like 1% for me. It's just 1% more time for me, and we're not. We're very fortunate because we have a very dedicated leadership. Also, not just in Next Space and MapleStory Universe, but also in Next in Korea, who are very supportive of this initiative. They already know, even before they started, they allowed this project to kick off and gave us $100 million internal funding. They already knew what this project was for. This is a huge, like one of the biggest experiment Nexon is doing to immortalize our IPs. I mean, we are known to sustain our IPs, making like already immersive virtual world into even more immersive ones, something that you last, something that it's part of your life, you've been playing for decades. Like, we are into building that kind of experience, and we believe blockchain and how we're utilizing blockchain, making a universe and allowing users to participate in building of this universe in a very systematic way with blockchain is the way forward, like for next 2, 3, 4 decades forward. So that's the reason why we are not like super in a hurry to have product shipped. We want to make sure that we release something that is going to make a very big impact and set the landscape different, change the landscape, and how setting the playbook of how Web3 games should be approached. And I think one of the, as you mentioned, like competitors, if we make this attempt right, if we do the go-to-market, the development, the community participation, and everything, tokenomics right this time with MapleStory Universe IP, I'm very, very confident that these Web2 companies with huge virtual worlds they will have to join Web3 gaming industry. They will have to. It's almost like, insisting not to use internet back in like early 2000s. They see how internet works and what it can do. You have no choice but to use internet. But we believe we're looking at blockchain in such a way. We're super early. I mean, internet in the early stages, they look like they're trash, like no one's gonna use it, but we all know it's inevitable. So in that sense, I think it's very different. And I think in terms of how we are positioned differently and what makes us unique in this market is, building a game, building a brand, building an experience. It's tremendously difficult job, regardless of Web 2 or Web 3. 80-90% of games newly developed and launched to the market, they all fail, even in a Web 2. With great teams, with great funding, with great market, they still fail. Game is just like that. Building a new home for experience is always very, very difficult. And I think the challenge is even more difficult in Web 3 compared to Web 2 in terms of game. If you're capable of building a fun game, it's easier to succeed in Web 2. It's easier to get funded in Web 3. It's definitely easier to address the Web 2 audience instead, because they are, ones who are not really playing the game to earn something, but they're paying you for the entertainment value. So if you want to build a new game, I think it's personally much easier to do it in Web 2. And a lot of games are being created in Web 3, and that's a very, very difficult job, building a new game. And especially with all these complexities, when you're releasing a game in Web 3, you're not just dealing with the gamers. There are gamers, there's investors, speculators, there are whales. There's a lot of incentive alignments that you need to be aware of and carefully design for them to intertwine nicely and work together, create synergy. That's a very, very difficult one, right? And I think for us, we already have an IP that is loved by a 250 million people. That's already a big head start for us. We have a huge less headache. We don't have to let people know what exactly is MapleStory, because a lot of people already know. And these people, these communities, these gamers, fans are very enthusiastic about sharing what MapleStory is on behalf of us to the participants in the market. They always talk about the game in the Twitter, in different communities, in different boards and arenas. So I think that's something we have a huge head start. And we already have like 20 years of contents already developed to be released. Whatever we go live, right? And that gives us a lot of breathing room as well. And there where we can there's a lot of resources we can also experiment and play with to allow different expanded audience to come and join and participate, own, capitalize, leverage. So I think I really can't think of any other, like not a single Web3 games existing or about to come into the market that has such a big and strong foundational IP to play with. I think that really sets us apart.
I actually want to piggyback a bit off of a couple of the things you mentioned. So I'm actually gonna. This is like the perfect opportunity for me to ask about what I mentioned before we started the stream. Web3 already is a bit problematic when it comes down to the general sentiment of the general gaming population. Like Web2 doesn't really enjoy Web3 as a whole because of the different experiences that Web3 kind of enjoyed pushing towards the traditional gaming market. Now, and this would be a double branched question essentially. The first one would be, what's the general actually not exactly a double branched question, rather one that the two questions that kind of tie together. How do you actually believe that the traditional gaming market will take, like, this MapleStory branch coming into Web3, especially considering the legal case that Nexon has essentially had on the back of MapleStory, with the whole, like, essentially on the context of manipulated, like, drop rates and so on. And yeah,
that's a heavy question. That's a very, very heavy question. Well, okay, but okay. I think one of the things that I like about Web3 is that we can, it's basically a distributed ledger. You cannot just do something on your own, under the table. Everything is transparent, and actually, a lot of people are paying big money for random seeds generated by objective third parties, like oracles and everything. So I think MapleStory is already integrated with Chainlink Oracle. So we are using an objective third party seeds for all these enhancements and everything. I think that's a huge way forward. I hope that should be also made available to the games in Web 2 whenever there's elements of chance going on. I think that's something very nice to have in Web 2 for that additional layer of trust, and actually not having to trust the game developer to be nice. You don't have to have that trust at all. So making blockchain is the enabler of that kind of technology. I think that's very important. So you mentioned, how will the Web 2 gaming markets will perceive us? I think that has a very different levels to it. And also the gamers in Web 2 and Web 3, they're not like a single layer similar kind of demographics. So it always follows the normal distribution curve, right? So there are extremely hardcore users, very casual users, whales, zero spenders. You can look at the population in very different aspects, and I think different people will react differently to MapleStory Universe bringing the Web 2 IP to Web 3. I think we are very, very sure that there are quite a lot of people who will welcome this initiative being launched in Web3 with blockchain technology. But of course, we believe it takes time. A change of a huge magnitude takes longer time for the market to learn, best cases to be formed and let known to the general public. People will slowly move, like from the early adapters from through the chasm to the general public and mass adoption. It's going to take time, just like how internet was formed in 1990s or maybe late 80s, but most of us started using them only in early 2000s, right? I only had my first internet maybe back in like 2002 2001 maybe. And back then there was nothing much to do in internet. Like only use case that I had was Kingdom of the Wind, one of the earliest game from Nexon, and MapleStory. Like after a year or two, that's like the only use case that I had. Right. Then eventually came Google, all the search. It became easier to find information. In the internet rather than libraries or asking your teacher. So like we're building the use cases, making it inevitable, like going forward. I mean, right now, a lot of skeptics are there. We're fully aware of it. A lot of Web 2 gamers actually hate Web 3 games. Like, I had tokens, coins, scams, rug pulls. I was one of them. Like before I joined, Web 3 games. Like I thought, even in a Web 2, we have, play to earn people like who are playing the game as a job, making living out of it. And Nexon is, there's nothing new to it. Nexon has been dealing with those problems or dealing with those situations for the last 2 decades, and we're very, very well aware of them. But do Web 2 gamers like those populations? No, they don't. They kind of look at those play to earn people as someone who's breaking the economy of the game, right? But I think the current perception of us or blockchain game by the Web 2 people might be something close to what I just mentioned. Like they don't really like it, but eventually, if we set the right way, the right playbook, right tokenomics, the right balance, right incentive alignments, and right entertainment, then things are going to be different. More big Web 2 IPs will come in. wider, more immersive, multi-layered experiences will be given to the gamers, and they will start to see little by little. They learn little by little, what's the benefit of being in this space, and eventually they will become our salesmen. Why you should play online game? I mean, that was something, like online games are not fun, pay to win. I would just rather play my PlayStation. I'll just play my, Super Famicom. All these things. Like, they will become our salesmen, like telling people, educating people, sharing their experiences, good experiences in Web3 gaming, and eventually, it's inevitable. It's gonna come, but time will tell. 100%.
This actually leads me to another question, because I just thought about it. Have you actually had people so far that have raised concerns over the fact that this whole pivot to Web3 might be an issue that comes on the back of the legal cases?
Oh, no. Actually, no. I mean, MapleStory in Web2 is strong as ever. I think with that, I think the doubt should be cleared. I mean, Web2 MapleStory is doing, it's growing actually. So, building this Web3 project because of issues in Web2, no, not really. But rather, we did have some good reason to venture into Web3, and that's because we need to find we wanted to revolutionize our business model. We wanted to change the relationship between the game developers and the gamers, from scratch. So this is not my idea. It's more of Daehyun's idea, the Next in Korea CEO's idea. So I think I've shared this anecdote before, but so he was telling me he's been building Web2. He has been building the Web2 games for like 25 years already, and he told me all the history of games and how their business model, how they evolved, what kind of new things came in, like come and go, right? And in Web2 games where the developers are like gods in the game, so seeing your GM or seeing your game dev inside the game playing with you is like witnessing a celebrity. It's like, hey, say hi to me, say all these things, right? And I mean that's cool, but the thing is, they are not just celebrity, they're gods. They can create new items out of thin air, just whim, like here item, there will be items, right? And if you have that kind of power, you are incentivized to wield the power for your own good, right? And of course, all the game projects have KPIs to meet, right? And since you have the superpower to create the economy, shape the economy, you use that seigniorage, right, to your advantage to maximize your revenue. I mean, it has to be, it's bound to be like that if you have that kind of power. And so we're selling something, and if we want to sell more, we have to sell something very nice at a cheaper price. If we sell something that's worth $20 at $15 price, and people have that $5 arbitrage freebie, people will buy it. That drives the company's revenue. That's like the basic economics, right? So, but the thing is, every time we do this cycle over and over, we're creating a lot of inflation. We're creating power inflation, right? And this, if you manage it carefully, might work over time, but it takes a lot of effort, a lot of dealing with the basic misalignment between the gamers and game developers. You are bound to create more items. You as a developer, you are bound to sell this inflation as your revenue. But do user like it? No, they don't like it. And when this cycle repeats enough time, people will start perceiving, Nexon is, doing business of devaluing my items for their revenue. And I have been a lifelong Nexon gamer before I joined myself, right? I knew this is somewhat true. I spent quite a lot of money in MapleStory, like to be exact, like I spent like $50,000 on MapleStory. My parents doesn't know it, hoping they're not watching this stream, but when I wanted to sell the item, of course, selling items with real money trading is not allowed in Nexon, but I did it. Okay, I did it anyways. So, but I recouped maybe like 10-15% of it. The rest of like 80-85% has been all diluted away because there are so many of the same items sold, same, abilities sold. So it's not rare anymore. So, 50K spent in the game, not a lot left. And, that's, quite hard to take. That's something quite hard to take. And this has to be solved in a fundamental level. We cannot resolve this misalignment of incentives and this broken relationship between game developers and gamers without totally reimagining the business model from scratch. And that's the reason why Daehyun called and told me, let's try to design a whole new economy where Nexon is not selling anything without cash shop, the infamous cash shop in our games. And that was groundbreaking. I mean, when I heard that word, that kind of ringed a bell in my head. Imagine like 2 decades ago, almost every single game was either you have to purchase the game in advance before you play, so you don't know if it's a shit game or not. You only find out after you paid the money. Or if it's a good online game, you have to keep on paying it on every month kind of basis, like monthly subscription basis. And one day someone came up and say, hey, let's stop all these things like all together. Let's make it free to play. Someone must say that and try to convince their boss to do it, right? Let's stop selling it. Let's stop the monthly subscription. Let's stop selling our games. Then that guy probably must have had a lot of resistance. Like, are you out of your mind? How are we going to pay all this rents, all the salaries and everything? But eventually that decision has allowed the game industry to 100 1000x, right? And I think we're at the back then I kind of felt like, okay, this is the moment I heard something, start of something very, very, very big. And eventually all our team were really working on finding that business model. How can we transform that relationship with the gamers? So even when Nexon is making money, gamers are happy about it. And even when their asset value grow, it's not about diluting their asset value, but when their asset value grow, I will also, as a Nexon, I'll also be happy for that. I'll be working to making sure our users' asset grow. And that's like the fundamental basis of how we start to redesign everything. So basically, by not selling anything, and by allowing like free transaction, limitless transaction, unlike in Web2 MapleStory, where we're creating infinite amount of items, so we have to kind of have a sink of these items that's infinitely being poured into the market. And how we do it is we restrict the trade count. So if you have an item, you can only trade 10 times. So every time you make a transaction with somebody else, like change of hands, there's a count going down like 10, 9, 8, 7. You can only trade like how many times, right? And every time you transact, you lose at least like 10% of the value. And the last person who buys it, when the trade count is like 0, you cannot sell it anymore. So that's how we kind of create the sink. And instead of doing that, we restrict the total number of items, just like in the world, like from water to the cup to diamonds to Rolex, everything is limited. Like diamond, gold, silver, water, sky, air, everything is limited. Although some of them feels more rare, some of them doesn't really feel rare, but everything exists in a finite quantity. Let's resemble how the real world works. Unlike in Web 2, we're the god, we can always create new gold, gold, then there is new gold. But let's avoid that in this Web3 environment. Let's set in stone, or maybe let's set in block that everything is already written there, it doesn't change, and everybody shares the same ledger, that everything is transparent. I think that was a huge enlightening moment. Like, let's not play God anymore. But of course, we need to make revenue. We have invested $100 million into this game, building this ecosystem, this chain, with 100+ people over last 40+ months. And how we want to do it is grow our economies very, very big, and then we take a little cut of it. I think that's like one of the way going forward. And because we are doing that, we are hoping the economy will grow But with the finite quantity of items, for economy to become that big, you know, each user's item values, you know, what they get, what they own, has to be more valuable. We have to work in a way, you know, to make our users rich, and you know, stay rich. I think that's one of the core fundamental shift in our, you know, priority in terms of mindset. And also our NXPC token design, if you look at it, NXPC is weekly basis given out to the contributors, and we will be one of the biggest contributors, because we'll be one of the very few you know, contributors in the early phases. Of course, we'll be welcoming a lot of new contributors in, but in the early phase we'll be probably one of the biggest contributors with the to the MapleStory universe with MapleStory N, right? And NXPC token is basically an ETF of all the assets that exist in MapleStory universe, all the assets that users have. That means if I want what I receive to be something valuable, NXPC to be valuable, I need to have my business around in a way. I make whatever that is underlying underneath this ETF to be valuable. So we are kind of ourselves, like game makers and gamers. We're incentive aligned. I want my gamers to become rich. I want what they own to be super valuable. I will not work in a way to devalue their items, but actually the opposite way. Gamers and game makers will be working together to make everything more valuable. I think this is fundamental shift of, you know, the relationship between the gamers and game developers. We have never seen something like these in the game industry. I think this is something fantastic. I'm really, really excited to see this play out in action. And also, this is the reason why I'm saying Web3 is inevitable. And imagine World of Warcraft see us doing this thing, and we are growing at an exponential rate. It's inevitable for them to use blockchain in the way we used, right? It's almost like resisting using internet. So I'm very, very interested to see this play out in next, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. That's going to be something super, super big.
You know, it's actually quite funny because you spoke a bit about the RMT during this whole discourse, and one of the main use cases that I've always seen for Web3 gaming to essentially fix has been the RMT market. Why? Because it's fully transparent. And not just that, but you can actually build a more proper economy around the whole concept of RMT, and suddenly it's not one of these illegal activities that's happening in the back streets of the game's economy itself, but it actually becomes a normality, and it actually becomes an activity that people can do comfortably and at their own time, in their own leisure, and it actually becomes a way in which people can enjoy themselves more. I've always been an extremely big ARPG fan, and obviously RMTs have been most predominant within the ARPG genre, specifically in Path of Exile of recent games. And this is quite funny because I play a lot of Path of Exile, especially now that Path of Exile 2 came out. And one of my friends, I was just having a discussion with him on exactly this subject, the subject of RMT inside of Path of Exile. And he's a hardcore player. I hate hardcore because I really hate the idea of losing my character to random stuff that's happening outside of my control, getting a leg spike and just losing my character. I would absolutely break my monitor. It would be absolutely terrible. But he likes it. He goes and he plays a lot of hardcore, but not necessarily because of the whole thrill of the hardcore style itself, but because of the RMT market. So RMT on the hardcore servers is actually a lot more profitable because it's with with the danger of losing everything on death, stuff becomes a lot harder to essentially properly risk manage. So this is one of the reasons for which people enjoy spending money and buying resources and just making sure that they're gearing up their character super heavily. And what this makes it is that people enjoy playing hardcore more because they can cash out. If you manage make a very OP character, you just cash out on selling resources. And as mentioned, I feel like Web3 might be the fix that we have. we haven't had like someone actively finding the solution, but it sounds like you guys are on the right path. So this is why I started like this whole discourse myself. But yeah, just wanted to like open this side subject essentially.
Yeah, and I think lots of gamers hate to admit, that how much value you get out of from playing the game is actually most of the time the definition of the fun. Of course, there are genres of the game. For example, for random game just popped out in my mind. Detroit Become Human is my favorite game from Steam. I didn't play that game for any kind of
I have all the achievements in Detroit Become Human, and I actually pre-ordered it.
Awesome. So you know what I'm talking about. There are definitely games that I play for different kind of experience, but in terms of online games, especially MMORPG, when you're with you're in that virtual world with your friends from the game, and you guys are basically, like it or not, competing each other. You know how strong the other person is. There is a certain objectives that only top few people can achieve. There are basically the elements of competition, like win or lose. And in that kind of environment, the monetary value, or it doesn't have to be monetary all the time, but the perceived value out of it is very, very important. So say, like, if you're gonna do rock scissors paper with me, and if we didn't bet anything, it's no fun. Like, even if I lose or win, I won't be getting any dopamine. But for example, let's bet 1 BTC. Loser have to pay the winner 1 BTC. Then it's gonna be something heart pounding. Like, I will start to pant and about doing all these things. That gives you dopamine, right? So I think the monetary value you get out of this competitive MMORPG online games is very, very important factor. It has huge impact on the fun that you perceive. And as you mentioned, in Web 2, we do have RMTs. And actually, after like 2 decades of these industry, came into the existence, I think RMT industry came into existence with the emergence of online game itself. It has this very, very similar history in a sense. It has improved a lot, so it's much safer now. But with all the escrows and everything, but the fact that it's not legal in most of the cases, at least, is if it's not like even if it's legal, maybe it's not allowed by the terms and conditions. So basically, you're doing something against the creator's will, the game creator's will, and that's the very reason why it cannot be officialized. It cannot be, brought to the mainstream. It always has to stay at the back street, right? But with the blockchain, not only this is official, but we are incentivizing people and builders to come in and build the fantastic applications that can turn their utility asset into a capitalizable assets. For example, your sword that you had in MapleStory just gave you that utility inside the game, but now you can rent it out. You can use as collateral for lending. There's just, these are very, very just 2 common examples of how a lot of NFTs are being utilized with blockchain. But the limit is your imagination. We are officially allowing this capital market to come in, and every item that you own is no longer just a game data. It's an asset that you own, that you can capitalize, that you can leverage, that you can make it into a resource that generates money for you. And people, on the other hand, people who cannot afford to buy very, very expensive game items or game assets, or they're just simply trying out, or maybe simply in need of an item for a very brief moment, they can, before in Web 2, there's no way you can gain access to items for these kind of circumstances. But in Web 3, everything is official, incentivized. I think that's a huge, the start of something very, very huge, even bigger. Actually, the backstreet economy in Web 2 is already a few $1 billion. Even when we're looking at MapleStory and Dungeon and Fighter, these 2 top Nexon IPs, the backstreet economy is already over $1 billion. Imagine this turn into something official, something you're incentivized, it's really, really hard to imagine how big, it will be.
Okay, and final question before I actually let Javen Himmers actually speak as well, because I just hijacked the stage at this point. But are there any chances, and this is not MapleStory related, this is Nexon related, are there any chances we're going to be seeing more Nexon titles inside Web3? And I am specifically looking at Vindictus 2 right now.
Publisher.
Yeah, we are the creators of Vindictus. And are we bringing more Nexon IPs to next space, like next to MapleStory Universe? Are we going to have new IP universes? 1000% yes. 1000% yes. We are already in conversation with, internally. We are basically all families, right? So, our CEO Sun Young has been working in, Nexon for like, I don't know, 22 years already. So it's been quite a while. And all the game directors are his colleagues, 4 decades, right? And we are in conversation. We are looking to pick which IP should be best suited to be onboarded. There are different considerations. I mean, something very, very similar to MapleStory would be much easier to implement. For example, Dungeon and Fighter would be, in terms of difficulty of implementation, should be easier because it's an MMORPG. It shares like items, it shares lots of similar mechanics and systems of game, like MapleStory. But we also kind of have at the side of our mind, should we bring a totally different genre so we can showcase how, not only MMORPGs, but different types of IPs, different types of games can be decentralized and made into a universe that a lot of communities and builders can join and build together and showcase how it can expand and, open that floodgate of, mainstream IPs to come in on board to next space. So these are some of the considerations that we're going through. But to answer your question, 100% Nexon IPs are coming to next space. In terms of Vindictus, I will have no comments on it. But I hope one day you'll be able to see a Web3 Vindictus universe in next space. That's gonna be very, very.
Oh my god! If Vindictus comes to Web3, I'm gonna lose my mind. I probably have like at least 1,500 hours in the first game.
Wow!
I used to grind that game at a very, very high level.
Wow, 1,500 hours. Damn.
So it means we won't see Dreadson working anymore, right? Or what? We won't. We won't see Dreadson working anymore if you release Web3 version. Let's go.
Yes. He'll be too busy grinding in the Vindictus universe. You will never see him in any podcast, and Dreadson will not steal the stage for you, Javi. So all good.
Yeah, all good. I'm just laughing my ass off because of this comment right now, and I'm going to give this person 0.69 AVAX for this comment. I want to see what's under Keith head. If it's bold, I will give everything for MapleStory Universe. No.
Sorry, I'm very far from bold.
I have respect.
A lot of hair. So, yep. Congratulations on winning your 0.69 AVAX. But yeah.
Yeah, feel free to ask any questions, audience. I'm going to have a lot more Alex for the best questions. And in the meantime, all these people saying that Web3 gaming is dead. After looking at what MapleStory is doing, I'm not sure about this fact. And that's what I'm going to ask you about. What do you actually think about the future of Web3 gaming, let's say in the next 1-2 years? And how do you expect these changes to affect MapleStory Universe?
Right. I believe, I hope, and actually I think a lot of people are hoping that hoping to see MapleStory do well and change up the landscape of Web3 gaming. I think that's in one sense very flattering. Thank you guys. But we also feel that kind of burden. So the thing is, a lot of games in the Web3, so-called Web3 games, they're not built for entertainment. They are built, usually they're designed, by design, they are vehicles for short-lived hype. I think I've mentioned this in one of the other spaces that I've been with you, Jave. But they are designed for short-term hypes. The creators and designers of the game already knew even before they launched that their game is not built for 3, 5, 10 years of sustained entertainment virtual ecosystem. It's not, not even meant for that. And at one part of deep inside my heart, I kind of feel like I sympathize with it. The thing is, the audience in the Web3 doesn't really seem to ask for entertainment in the Web3 gaming either. They are asking for like a gamified Pum.Fun with Pum.Fun with more graphics and controls. But the thing is, we have different personalities, we have different preferences, and we all rely on that normal distribution curve. Maybe we're one of the very, very early adopters who are willing to risk high risk appetite, high risk, high return kind of people, willing to learn something very frontier, very, very new, esoteric to many people, and overcome all that hurdle for that extra excitement. But if we do it right, we can finally cross that chasm of Web 2 conventional gamers, or actually we have all been Web 2 conventional gamers. We did not suddenly one day pick up a hat of Web 3 gamers and forgot everything about being a Web 2 Game Boy game fan, right? We all know what it means to be asking for entertainment. By the way, I am waiting tomorrow for Assassin's Creed Shadows to be released. I have pre-downloaded already. Something like this. I'm begging for this entertainment. I've paid $100 for this game. I'm willing to pay. I'm not expecting anything in return, right? Something like that. We have that kind of gamers in the world, all over the world. MapleStory has 250 million of those users. And I think the future, next 1 to 2 years, maybe 2 to 3, it's going to take time. It's going to slowly change one bit by one bit. More gamers will come into the space with better user experiences, with better entertainment value, with less scams, less hurdles, less archaic, elements of Web3, all these things. A lot of good projects and teams are working to minimize that frictions that exist in UX. It's gonna change, but it's gonna change very, very slowly. So yeah, I hope we are at the very forefront of building this new journey. And I kind of feel that responsibilities, if we fuck up, then, maybe Web3 game can truly die. So, that's a responsibility that we have. And another mega trend that I will see is for the shit games that are vehicles for short-lived hypes, it's going to get super difficult for you guys to get fundings. 3 years ago, it was easy to secure $1, $2, $5 million in funding so you can rock people. It's gonna get ever so more difficult. You cannot sell your game to your investors with decks or 5-minute videos. And I think that's the right way forward. People are gonna be educated. The VC money, angel investors, general public, they know what to buy and what not to buy. So I think that's gonna be definitely much better in 2 years. So if you want to build a shit game and rug out, you won't be getting any fundings. So market will see less of those. With less of those in the market, more people seeking real entertainment will come in. I think that's why the Web3 game is inevitable. In early stages of every business, every industry, we tend to see this kind of things, right? But eventually, as the industry grows more mature, real players come in, real builders come in, and we're gonna see the landscape change forever.
I appreciate you for answering the question. And by the way, I was wondering how much time do you still have? Because there are a few more questions that you would like to ask.
It's like 10 p.m., so I have all night.
You don't want to say that. That's something you want to
You
see.
don't want to
I'm
say
sorry,
that.
just I will for one moment interrupt. I going to host the event. I really appreciate you at this
Yeah.
moment, like just to hear from you all this, like that's the something way bigger. You know, the toys made us, the games made us, the blockchain made us. That's what we'll see, foundation and legacy in the future. And really appreciate you for building this. It's like something bigger that's maybe people who watch this will not understand right now, but in 3 years someone will say Nexon Cook Web3 Gaming in 2025. So that's like, I mean, wish you make it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
Bullish.
great questions and comments. Hi, Mars. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you, Hammers. Have a great event as well.
Thank you.
And few more questions.
Hi.
First of
Ready.
all, thank you, Dominic, for being a moderator on my X stream. And we just officially crossed 1K views, which is crazy across all the platforms. I appreciate you, everyone, for joining. And the next question that I would like to ask you, through that time that you've been building in Web3 gaming and your past playtest as well, what you've learned that is significantly different from traditional gaming, and not only like the blockchain part, but overall like strategy, marketing wise, and all the other directions. What is significantly different from traditional gaming?
So it's my first time in an early industry. You know, so I think it's a very special experience that people who are in an industry that's in a nascent state, must have went through, like everyone. So basically, there's a lot of new things we had to unlearn and relearn, right? So as you mentioned, marketing, building a game, management of the in-game economy. So Nexon has been building an economy in the traditional way for last 3 decades, right? So we always can create new items when we wish. We can always create new, even better, stronger items as we need it, right, all the time with infinite quantities. We don't have that luxury anymore. We're basically, for example, we're creating an Earth. We are creating the rules of the Earth, the physics of the Earth that cannot be violated. You cannot suddenly start flying, yourself in the Earth that you have created, because rules are rules. We're basically building a physical engine, right? That would like economic engine, economic rules, like laws of economics in this virtual blockchain virtual ecosystem. And this is something pretty new to us. A lot of the rules that we have set works against us in terms of traditional sense, like something that we could have exploited in a way in Web 2 is something that we have to obey by the rules in the Web 3, right? So there's a lot of new things that we have to change. That's why MapleStory and on the surface looks very, very close to the MapleStory in the Web 2, but inside the interaction layer, the economics layers, the experience layer is totally built from scratch. I think that was one. Of course, whenever we want to try out something new, something exciting, a lot of resistance in terms of compliance. I actually had to travel across all over the world to find where it would be the best jurisdictions where we can settle it down as a home and bring on board a lot of our Korean developers into. So we are in Abu Dhabi right now. We're very happy here, and but the journey finding a new home here was a very, very long one. Looking for the best place to do our businesses, in a long run. That was something very tough. Also, for example, the community. We have a very, very strong gamers community who are looking at our product as a part of their entertainment. But the thing is, inevitably, when we list our token, we do TG, when we go live, there will be people who will come in to exploit our game. There will be bots and macro farmers in lots of places. They will come in a big volume. It will be not just the end of development, but it's more of a start of a very long war against these bot farmers and exploiters. Uh, and because the token is listed, it has much more economic value compared to the Web 2 currencies and assets. We're expecting much more of these attempts to exploit will come. So we have to be super, super ready. Fail proof in multiple levels. I think that's something particularly difficult. The way we market is also very, very difficult. It's very hard to, for example, do a traditional kind of marketing. For example, when Nexon is launching a new game, we do TV ads, we do offline ads. We have, all the buses and subways wrapped around in our new game brand identities and drawings and everything. We just do it massively all over the world. But the thing is, with Web3, these kind of things are sometimes not allowed, right? And a lot of people who are there in the subway, they're in the bus looking at these advertisements or looking at the TV ads, they're not really they are later customers to these industries. They're not the first chasm crossers. They're not the early adapters. So, finding the right medium, the right target, the right destination where our marketing efforts will land, these are something very, very experimental, lots of trial and errors. So yeah, definitely a lot of failures, retries, and learning every day.
Yeah, and moving forward to the next question regarding that, what if you had the option to, would you give any specific advice to other big companies and startups that want to enter the game market right now?
Advice. My advice would be, don't rush. Respect the rule of economics. You cannot create value out of thin air. If, that's number one. You cannot create value out of thin air. If somebody's making money, somebody's losing money. Respect these two rules. Evaluate your game designs, your economy designs in a way that will be sustainable. Don't build something that will last, I don't know, a year or 6 months and try to, make money quick. That's just not gonna happen. But I kind of feel like these are luxuries. Having these environment where you guys are well funded, you guys have big runway, supportive leaders, with high convictions, is a luxury that we have. So I kind of have that, understanding. But if you want to succeed in Web3, if you believe Web3 is a new internet, and you're like facing internet in like early 2000s, all these possibilities, you're gonna be new Google, new Amazon, next Microsoft, and next YouTube. You have to build some product that actually create value so that users are willing to pay money to use your services. And I think, not your token price, not your launching date, not become rich very quick. I think these core values you have to really keep in mind. And once in a while, you have to stop and look back at your product, already sticking true to what we have initially started to, with the reason you start to build this whole product with. And having that reflection and doing the sanity checks, once in a while, I think is very, very important.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, like, it's really great to see that the space is evolving and more, bigger companies entering Web3. And like, for example, Ubisoft from the others, you next on building in Web3 gaming. It's really bullish, and I'm really excited about the vision of your team as well. It's great to see, and I hope that in the coming years, space will evolve even more, and all the vaporware, all the bad products will stop getting funded. I really hope for that. And from my side, no questions. Dredson, do you want to ask anything else as well?
Yes, I actually was waiting to ask this one specifically. Well, MapleStory has basically been like, essentially kind of the same game for the past decades. I'm very curious about this one specific thing, since there's never been like, a sequel, essentially, a MapleStory 2. If the Web3 branch goes properly, what would be the chances that there will be a MapleStory 2?
Dreadsong, there was MapleStory 2.
Oh my god. As mentioned, I did not
You're
I did not
retarded.
as mentioned, I did not play the game. I did not play the game.
But unfortunately, so
This is so
basically,
funny.
MapleStory 2 was 3D. It wasn't. It was no longer like 2D side scroll kind of thing, but it was in full 3D. And
Okay, that's
I
interesting.
actually joined as a beta tester. Like, I don't know, that was like 2000 maybe 10, something like that. 9. I don't recall which exact year was that, but it was a 3D MapleStory that actually resembled very, very like you know, uh, Minecraft in a way, but like MapleStory themed Minecraft that came before Minecraft. So it was like pretty cool. But I think recently the project is no longer in service. I think it was very, very recent decision. But basically, MapleStory Universe is the next MapleStory. It is MapleStory 3, in fact.
This is funny. And so while you were answering this question, I went and started searching this a bit. And yeah, so I guess this is also one of the reasons for which I did not know about this, because the servers shut down in 2020. So yeah, this was a funny fact that today I learned essentially. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and the last question from my side: are there any specific games or companies in Web3 gaming that you personally find interesting or a fan of, or not specifically Web3 gaming, but could be just crypto in general?
Let's go OTG. Boo, 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 boo. I love OTG, and there are a lot of interesting cases. One thing I kind of really admire is also Axie Infinity and Ronin, how they're doing right now, and how they have transformed a single game into an ecosystem of builders. Essentially, something very, very similar to what we want to do, and an ecosystem where a lot of builders can come in and build the IP together. I think that's a very, very cool concept. They're executing very well recently. And OTG, how they have attracted the Web2 gamers across the chasm of blockchain is something remarkable. It's something the market has to learn. Like do the case study. Like there should be like a Harvard Business Review of Web3. Like how did they do that shit, right? And how OTG did it was pretty cool. Like they didn't really show that blockchain layers to their face, like, hey, blockchain, like they didn't do that, but like they have made it very, very subtle, and I am very interested to see how they will gradually roll out and educate that millions of people they have gathered to play their game. So I'm very excited for how they will play out.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the OTG as well. And OTG is one of the few games that my normie friends that don't know anything about crypto started asking about. They're like, coming to me, oh, have you heard about this game OTG? Yeah, they're in Web3. They're building Web3. So it was really cool, and we've been playing together a bit as well.
100%.
Yeah, I'm personally excited about MapleStory Universe. I'm excited about OTG. And Dominic is commenting on the X broadcast. Should we bring MapleStory 2 to MapleStory Universe? Answer in the comments, guys. But yeah,
cool
that's
stuff.
it for now.
Let's do that,
For
Dominic.
today. Yeah, cool stuff. Was really excited, to hear your answers to all the questions. I think it was really insightful for the audience. Thank you to everyone for asking the questions. I'll read all the questions after the stream as well to see what great questions, what are not, because I saw some of them from ChatGPT. I'm not going to count these ones. You need to be really unique about your question as well. And yeah, I would be keeping an eye on MapleStory Universe. Looking forward to all the future playtests as well, and we'll be actively supporting too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you, Dread Song. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. And
thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Anytime again.
Yes, sir. And it was the most popular stream ever, actually, because it got 1.2K views in just 1 hour, which is crazy.
Amazing. Way to go.
Well, there we go.
Yes,
That's pretty much
See you
it.
guys next time.
We're not gonna take more of your
Ending
night
the
like
stream.
you suggested we do.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Ciao. Bye-bye.
See you around.
Ciao. Bye.